Welcome back to the Glass Table, where we are promoting leadership, transparency, and vulnerability while providing clear insight for change. This week we have Dr. Micheal Carter Jr., the lead pastor of the Well Church, who is a church planner and strategist. We had a conversation early into COVID-19 about how the church will behave, look, and feel post-COVID-19. Now that everybody's getting back to worship and everything is opening up, was he right? Leave your comments in the comment sections. Let us know. But join us in this conversation at the table.
Vulnerability, so that people know that, you're not in these spots by yourself. You're not in this.
Right.
So, yeah.
Love the concept. I mean, very good concept. I think one of the things that we're all trying to figure out today is how to keep that level of ingenuity fluid. In times like this, where we all have schedules and ideas of things that we had planned. Like you said, hey, I can't store and bank these. I got to kind of flip on the fly and do something fresh right now. We were in a similar boat. We launched our podcast sooner than we anticipated. In the process of launching it sooner than anticipated for a very similar reason. And so I completely get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I like that, because you said we're not able to move and do as we want to do, but doesn't mean that we shouldn't be doing something.
Right.
And so just talk to us a little bit about, what has it been like, because you have one church and now 3 locations, one on a campus in BG.
So we're in a different kind of position now. Happening, we were in Detroit, and I'm in a process of transitioning from that, turning that over, launching in Toledo. So we're building that now, and it's tricky because we're in the middle of building the launch team, building the small groups. The actual launch date's 2/14/21, but we're already building forward to it. And then, of course, we're on the campus of Bowling Green State University. And that kind of got the wind knocked out of it a little bit, because that was the first thing that got shut down for us.
Yeah.
And so, you got this one church, 3 locations, 3 church, 3 separate locations. Everything carries a different name. But I bring that up to say we've had to find ways to streamline it. We've had to find ways to connect things that weren't supposed to be connected. So I thought, and like I said, keep that ingenuity forward and fresh, and lean on teams that I didn't know we were going to have to lean on because of the process that we're now finding ourselves in. And so I've had to learn, Pastor, to be a leader all over again. I'll be clear with you. I had to learn some things over, because sometimes you think you got it figured out. And I've learned when you think you got it figured out, that's when you're in trouble.
Right.
So we're in the process now of trying to relearn a whole lot of processes. And I'm asking some tough questions right now, man. Chief among them is, why are we doing this? Right. And being really honest and transparent about why we do certain things. Because some stuff we do out of tradition, some stuff we do out of convenience, but is it necessary?
Right.
And so I'm in a completely new place.
Yeah. And I like that, because one time in a conversation with Bishop Michael Pitts, I remember him saying, when he became a pastor, he did not know he would have to learn some of the things he had to learn. And then so with every new level that he's gone up, he has had to, learn new things, building codes, so he's had to become an engineer to some degree. He's had to become the designer to some degree, tech support, all these things that you had to learn that you didn't know, like coming out of Bible college or coming out of, or just even getting that call in the ministry that you would have to learn. And then now here it is, you're in this space where you're saying, I had to learn things, I had to learn new things and learn things all over again.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think about the first time I planted a church was over 20 plus years ago, 22 years ago. So now, and I was a kid. And so now I'm in that process again, and it's not the same. And things that I lost or forgot about, I've had to relearn and be like, oh yeah, I did learn that before. But how does that apply now, 2 decades later? Or how does that apply to a new generation? So I've had to learn that. And I've also had to learn just a different approach to leading a team.
Yeah.
I had a student, I think last week, Keisha, matter of fact, had a student last week that interviewed me for class.
Mm-hmm.
And she's taking a class, she's interviewing me on leadership. She's asking me all of these questions. And man, Charles, I had to sit back and say, my leadership style is different.
Yeah.
I'm not the same leader I was then. I used to be the hot golden boy kid who shows up on the scene and the church is like, whoa, he's got these great ideas, but he's young. So they were trying to lead me and guide me. And I had to figure out how to have zeal and gain wisdom to win people's approach to what I was doing.
Yeah.
Now, especially being at BG, I'm the old dog, right? I'm not the young kid on the block.
Right.
And I now have to convince them that my wisdom has enough strength in it to undercoat and undergird their zeal or their knowledge or what they think should be doing. And when it's not the right path, how do I take young leaders and help position them to see that I'm not so old that I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm not too young to make the same mistake again.
Right.
Right. And so it's learning now that balance and that switch between how do you get people to trust you in the middle of a pandemic who don't even know if they like you.
Wow. Wow.
Right?
Wow.
They ain't even been around you long enough.
They haven't even been around you long enough because this team and this ministry is so new for you guys that they haven't even grabbed a hold of even the concept that you are the leader, right?
Exactly.
They know it fundamentally, but from a heart perspective, they haven't even wrapped their arms around that to even say, who do I go to in this time to even trust to say this is what I'm dealing with? So they have to figure it out. But now here's the thing: you've been given this opportunity of a crisis for them to now see, and so prayerfully they come out of this believing stronger, providing stronger, and so forth.
Man, for all 3 locations, the crisis is a blessing for me.
Okay.
In all 3 locations, because it has allowed me to wipe slates clean. And it has allowed me an opportunity, especially in BG and in Toledo and what we're doing, to undergird guys, support them, build relationship, but have no baggage as to this is how we used to do it.
Got it.
So especially at BG, it no longer matters how they used to do things. And the board that I had, the strong parts of those boards are transitioning out. So I'm putting new people in place already. And so I'm already in position because I got boots on the ground to grow it how I need to. The Well, what we're doing in Toledo, it's giving me the ability to fast track some things, use technology and get our legs under us. So while established churches are figuring out that they're never going to be the same again, we're going to start out in this new normal. So I'm excited about that, right? Yeah. And in Detroit, while we're transitioning, it gives me the ability to help that transition in a way that they don't have to think about what I was doing. They find a way to find their own sea legs earlier than we expected. And so for me, it's just a beautiful situation. And I'm able to sit back and say, hey, for the very first time, I can be vulnerable and say, we're all learning together. And I'm not expected to be the expert.
Yeah.
Right? Because none of us have lived through this before.
Right. Now, and you said something that's very key because older, well-established churches, this is now a new norm. They're trying to figure out what it's going to be like. And for you, because the ministry is so new and both BG and Toledo, is that you get to start out with now this new normal, which allows you some innovation and planning differently versus, a lot of guys, once you built your launch team up, you start looking for a facility, okay, we got say 50 people, 25 people, whatever you got, in that beginning launch phase, and you start to look for where are we going to plan ourselves, where we're going to go first, what's in how we're going to market all these things, and you think, and so now it's a re-strategizing because it's like, hey, does a facility really matter?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the conversations we're having. I give you a prime example. We're looking at a piece of real estate because we wanted to have a headquarters, right? My thought was that we could go to a school or any place that made us portable for Sunday morning, but we needed to have a headquarters for meetings, for team development, for those personal development. That's more how we're driven, for community outreach. And so we had a place in mind. Church was moving out. And when that church moved out, the owner said, we don't want another church. So we didn't even get a chance. So the wind was knocked out of us. We thought we had that figured out, right?
Yeah.
We had marked a spot at months before they even moved out. Was wiped out of us. So then we're looking at this other location that's about 3 miles away from where we want to be, but still on the main road.
Yeah.
And we just had the conversation yesterday. I bring this up because my wife and I were talking about, does that location even matter now? See, originally, before all of this happened, I'm saying it's 3 miles too far. Right? We're trying to be on a particular border in a particular neighborhood. We got a particular niche, right? Middle class, urban, we know what we're going after. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, this happens. So does that location even matter where we headquarter? Because ultimately, we're going to go global. Right. Ultimately, we're going to go in such a way that some of our teams not even in Toledo. Just let me say it. Now I'm more embracing people who are in Texas and in Florida who hold certain expertise that my team need that I don't have locally. So now when I start strategizing and thinking about it, this is my third Zoom call of the day.
Yeah.
Right? And so how do I build and strengthen outside of that has a total different perspective than it did a week ago when it came to real estate.
Man. And, and that's something. That's because, I was watching something on Facebook, and it was a guy conducting a choir, right? And so everybody in their choir was in a different location, just had these different, the screens up on the background, but everybody's singing, you know what I mean? They had I was like, wow, that is pretty, that's pretty innovative. You have a full choir and nobody is in the same location. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And the only one on the platform was the conductor. You know what I mean?
So we joked about that 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, we talked about doing it, and we were joking about it with our band. I was like, man, we got to shoot live, but how do I get the band? Because my band right now is in different states. The band that I want to use. All my key players are in different states. And I'm telling my son, I think we can use Zoom and pull this off. He's like, oh, Dad, we can't do it. There's delays online, and he's giving me all these reasons. And then all of a sudden, we see two churches do the choirs, and he looked at me, and he's like, I think we can pull it off.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes you have that idea, and then you got to see it. I remember something Dr. Vernon said to me once before, and that was sometimes you have to see something and show it to your team to raise their expectation, because you can yell from the mountain, but sometimes they so tight in the trenches with you, they don't realize y'all on the mountain.
Right.
Right. And so you got to show them something bigger so they'll look up and say, oh, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it was. I think you're right. The innovation that's available to us today have never been pressed the way it is right now, because we're having to be innovative. It's always been available to us.
Right.
We just never thought outside the box because we were comfortable.
Right. Yeah, we always thought we would need this in order to do that. You know what I mean? And I think that is how so many leaders are thinking right now, because, it's not like, we're not talking about, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 1 year ago. We're talking about less than 30 days ago.
Yeah.
This was the norm, and now everybody is forced to shift.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so if we're all forced to shift, then how are we shifting? And then here's the other question is will things go back to normal? You know what I mean? And then what will that normal be? I don't perceive anything going back to the way it was, at least for some time.
I agree with you. I don't think there's going to be what we consider normal ever again. I think there's a new normal. And it won't completely look like this, but it'll be some blend. You know how many people I've had say to me, hey, I like the way we're doing church now.
Yeah.
I like this. And I think about our team. I told our team, I said, what happens to the lady who comes to your church, but right now she's in a fluffy robe with fluffy house shoes on with a cup of tea or coffee, and she don't have to get out of her bed, but she's enjoying church.
Yeah.
She ain't coming back.
You're right.
Not every Sunday.
A strong possibility.
So they were already coming to church 2 times a month. The average church saw their members 2 times a month.
Mm-hmm.
Does this now mean that you will see them 2 times digitally and once in public, in person? So does it change how people interact with the church? Does it change how we need to start connecting? Does it change even how we do business? Let's step outside of church, but how we're doing business is going to change.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't know if I ever want to just walk into a restaurant again to pick up food. I like the convenience of curbside now.
Yeah.
Right? I like that I can order bubble tea right now, know exactly what time is ready, and pull up the balance and grab it.
Right.
I'm loving the fact that the way that I can now, I'm forced to order food was once an inconvenience, but now it's become normal for me already. So I can't see me walking in, standing in line anymore.
Right.
I can stand in line in my car.
Right.
Right. So it's going to change it. So then that's going to change how many people go back to work.
Right.
Or what types of jobs they're going back to.
Yes.
Right. I don't think it's ever going to be normal again.
Yeah. Because, I mean, because even though, let's just say May, which I think they're predicting like May 7th or something like that, for them to lift as restrictive bans that are in place now, relaxing some of those. But let's just say everything is clear, like, okay, everything can go back to normal.
Right.
I think we have thinking people, right? Like smart people in this world, right? And I think a lot of people will be thinking, although they can go back to norm, they can go back and do their shopping. I think that in the back of their mind is that the threat is always there.
Yeah.
It's like once the threat is there, you're always going to believe it's there.
Yeah.
And now this is gonna be pointing out a little bit of my nerdy geeky side, I guess. But everybody got their flaws, you know what I mean? I still see grown men rooting on WWE, on Facebook. So whatever, talk about me. But like I love Marvel movies, right? And so I remember in the age of was it Ultron or whatever, in the Avengers. Tony Stark had, created this new thing. Why? Because from the first time aliens broke the atmosphere, his thing was there's always going to be a threat, right? There's always going to be a threat. So I don't know how people are going to start to maneuver back with people once we now condition people to have personal distance.
I think it depends on how long it lasts. So I was reading, unfortunately, that's all I do seems like is read. I was reading a couple of articles yesterday about China. So China's completely back open now this week, as of yesterday. Okay. And 2 of their national treasures were packed at 7:20 in the morning. One of which in Wuhan, you can't have more than 20,000 people. So at 7:48 in the morning, they already reached 20,000 capacity. And I guess it opened at 7. Yeah. And so people had rushed out because they were tied up and locked up for so long. So I think some areas will see explosion of people and other areas won't. So I don't think we're going to rush to Red Lobster. I don't think we're going to rush to Olive Garden. Love those restaurants, but they may not recover before the summer's over, right? But we might rush to Cedar Point. Simply because we want to now feel like we can do something again. Right? So there's some places that I think are going to experience this great push, while other places are still going to be in that deficit because when we think about it, you're right, we're not going to want to have that interaction. We're going to be worried about, can we get infected for those of us who have it, right? Yeah. So I think the church falls in that latter category. right? There's not going to be a whole lot of people that's going to rush because unfortunately the church are getting some negative pub right now because of leaders who didn't close, various different things. And I don't really care. Everyone has to do what's best for them. But overall, the negative pressure and press that the church has gotten, I think is going to really affect long-term how the church responds in this moment. So for us, I think it has to become this balance of how creative do we come with technology. Think about this. Michigan already canceled schools for the year. Ohio's on the verge, right? It may be happening now. The governor may be doing it this moment. Who knows, right? If school gets canceled, one thing's for sure, they're going to have to decide, how do we bridge this gap of technology? Some kids have Chromebooks, some kids don't. Some kids are able to use Google Hangout and other things for courses, some can't. So education and technology is about to have a marriage that's going to come faster than we expected. Right? That, boom, whatever that looks like, we as a church better be on that train. Because it's going to dictate and determine what ministry looks like going forward. Because they're hearing sermons now, hooping don't transfer online. Right? I mean, hollering don't translate online. So your preaching style even has to change. Content, information. Well, they were already headed in that direction. I think this just pushes us further in that kind of context to where slides are more important and content-driven preaching is more important. So what does church look like? What does preaching look like 30 days from now when you got to go and sit in the building and hear a sermon again?
And what are you looking for exactly? You know what I mean? You know, we saw churches in so many different phases, and I'm sure there's people who are far more expertise in this area than I am. But when you see churches evolving, right? Like there was the local neighborhood, everybody walked to church era, you know what I mean? Then that merged more into your denominational driven type churches, and then, you know, and being connected via fellowship and all these different types of things. On the verge of that, you saw the parachurch movement, you know, really strong. And then it went into more of the mega church, you know, type thing, you know, and then we saw just recently more churches moving towards cause-driven things, you know what I mean? So you have to have a social context attached to ministry. What are you solving? What are you doing? And in the midst of that whole parachurch, mega church, cause-driven, internally inside the building, now there went to a children's youth ministry, everybody separate, right? Nobody really worshiping together. And now this is now forcing families back together again. Like, you know what I mean? Like, not that families wasn't together before. It's not what I'm saying. It's just that they worship differently. They educated themselves differently. They work separately from their kids. And now everybody's in the same house again. And I'm sure there's some people out there like, I can't wait till these go somewhere, get somewhere, you know. But but how is church responding now to keeping families together? I'm just curious as to how this all is going to look. Is there going to be a need for children's ministry, you know, past this? Is there, you know, what is God saying about all of this? And I'm sure everybody is going to hear something differently as it relates to what works best for them, you know. But it's making me real curious.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Sorry, my background got a little bit noisy. Sorry about that. I agree with you 100%. I think that one of the things we're going to notice is social media was an early gift to the church. Social media was an early gift to church. I did some dissertation work on digital presence as it relates to churches, right? And how it affects sermons and how it affects our perception of sermons and information. And I think that what we're going to realize is people receive information differently because of social media and digital components. And because of that, social media made community a bigger thing, but most of my friends don't live near me. Most of the people I talk to every day don't live in Ohio or Michigan. Yeah. Most of those people live in other states because of the power of social media. My closer friends, I'm close to them now because we have digital connection.
Yeah.
I talk to them more regularly through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I see their families, their ministry, their business. I support them digitally. Yeah. I can buy your book digitally now. Never come to your book signing, right? Eric Thomas just did a virtual album release, which was one of the most amazing things I've seen about a week ago. And so because of that, I think churches are going to begin to see some things differently and have to build new styles of youth ministry, new styles of small groups and life groups, and begin to take things online in a lot of ways. I think pastors are going to have their work cut out. We're going to have to build teams. I think we're going to have to do blogs and articles. I think we're going to have to do podcasts. I think we're going to have to do a lot of video content. I think people are going to want things in smaller, bite-sized pieces. They're going to want things that they can hold and capture and grab. I think that, hi, Mike. I think that those are things that want to be done. But most importantly, I think that we're going to see that there's people who have to be very strategic in how we do church, because now we can come together in ways that we once couldn't come together, right? So it can't just be small group meets on Monday at 7 o'clock in the gym and at 3 o'clock we're in the back room. It literally is going to have to be that we digitally have some things put into place stronger, more remotely, so that we can do it in a much more broad and robust way.
You know, Pastor Henderson, I think I'm saying his name right. I'm sorry. Keon, yes. Out of, I remember listening to him once, and phenomenal teacher, preacher, psalmist, by far. But I remember listening to a message once, and he was talking about all the things that was going on behind the scene in order for him to be seen on social media, TV, right, all those things, right? He had teams in his church that nobody ever seen. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like because they were in a booth somewhere, they were behind in a room, exactly, doing live editing and all those things. And so I think that, those types of teams and building those types of things, even for smaller ministries, is going to be important. And I think this is where, versus looking at some of the larger ministries, and like hating on them, right? Because they have the dollars or the technology that, you didn't have, or whatever the case may be. I think this is the time that we can go to them and learn and say, okay, how do you scale down, right, to this? What are the starting packages for a ministry or a church of, 200 or 100 or whatever the case may be, that they can now get into, so that they can, produce some of the same types of things. It may not be as robust or or tech savvy, but it can be something that you're producing,
Absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation a minute ago with someone very similar. And I said, hey, we now live in an age where there's an app for everything. Yeah. First of all, right? There's an app for everything, right? But I made the comparison. Right now, everybody's got 10 members. So we're all equal.
Yeah.
Right? So everybody in your audience is 10 or less.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the quality background, maybe you put your family in the room, show the bodies, right? And if you got the quality background, then maybe you don't need the bodies because you don't need the juice, the energy anymore. right? Because the energy is what's key, I think, in what we're doing. But I mean, you get for $1,000, you can get Sling Studio and connect any kind of camera you have, and it could be Android phone, digital cameras, camcorder, and you can now control it with a switcher remotely from a phone or a tablet, and have lower thirds and everything, right?
Right.
That's if you got $1,000.
Right.
You got an iPhone and a wife with an iPhone because you got an buy one get one XR free, right? iPhone XR, whatever it was, 11s. Then you can download Switcher, for free for 2 weeks anyway, or get a small plan, and you can have 2 angles and still have lower thirds and logos and all sorts of stuff. And a green screen's what, $39 if you got to buy one for real?
Yeah.
Or you can paint a wall green if you had to in the garage, and put a backdrop up, right? And you can do that in Canvas for free.
Right. Well,
So
I mean, you look at Zoom, right? Like I can put my backdrop in Zoom, was actually behind me as my bookshelf. You know what I'm saying?
So I was looking at yours like, man, why didn't I do that? Right? Like I have this capability. I got a Zoom call tonight. Yeah, I need to drop my backdrop before we do that. Or Good Friday. Look, for Good Friday, we can't do 7 last words in person like we normally would do, right?
Right.
So I'm now just deciding, look, I'm gonna grab 7 of my boys, and I've started on it this morning, and have everybody preaching their own locale, and I'm gonna just load it and stream it, and it'll look like it's live.
Yeah.
But it'll be probably pre-recorded.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so those are things that we can do small. Right. You can one man could do that by himself if he had to.
Right.
Or, you know, I have an advantage. One of my older sons worked at World Harvest for several years when he went to school. And so he came home and shared a lot of things with us. You know, he still doesn't live at home. So I can call him and say, hey, I need X, Y, and Z done. And so he teaches me how to use AirDrop and other features to take a video from one place, load it to another, put it in the cloud where he can grab it and put it in Final Cut or Final Pro. So my point is, every one of your team now can be anywhere. And that's kind of what I was trying to say in the beginning. You learn how to be a leader differently. Your team no longer has to be local, right? And you can begin to do things in an incredible way that you couldn't do yesterday, that now all of a sudden, why pay $100 on a day on the building when I can pay $100 and hire somebody to do the work I need in El Paso, right? And that be the only $100 I spend.
Yeah, and then now you have places where freelancers, you know, these freelance type website hubs that, you know, even if you didn't have somebody on your team, you know, you can put a bid out. They can, you know, edit your stuff for you, do whatever the case may be, you know, and that's something that, you know, I just discovered. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, right? And we were getting ready for his talk, you know, and I'm like, you know, he's like, what you doing? So I'm like, I said, man, I'm trying to figure out this CAD design and, you know, trying to put, you know, rearrange this room, right? You know, and he was like, you know, why don't you just go on this website and hire a freelancer and they can do it for you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know, get the job out there for bid, you know? And so, man, when I hung up, I did that. Then when I realized all the other stuff from there, I'm like, man, I need this done. I need that done. I need this done. Yeah. So I just put up like 5 different jobs, you know what I'm saying? And now I'm getting all these bids coming back. Yeah. Like, you know, it's cool. And I never even have to leave my house. You know what I'm saying?
Been doing it for years.
You know? And so I think this has now opened up a whole new world for people who refuse initially to embrace it.
Exactly.
Like, you know, oh, that's for the young people, or that's for this person, you know what I mean? Like, and there's always something new coming out, right? You know what I mean? Like, my daughter is trying to get my wife and I to get ready, you know, for this TikTok thing she's doing, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? But it's always something new, but you realize, hey, if I want to stay ahead of the curve, I need to learn something new, right? And I think this has been the theme all this week for me in every conversation. You know, what do you need to learn?
Yeah.
So when you come out of this, you have a different scope and a different behavior.
I think you're right on it. And Pastor, I'll say this to you, not to cut you off, but I think TikTok is teaching us lessons.
Mm,
So everybody in the nation is on TikTok right now, seems like, right?
yeah.
Everyone's doing the dance, right? We see it all happening.
Right.
Everyone's doing the dance. My kid's been on TikTok for a while. My 5-year-old knows how to work TikTok, right?
Yeah.
TikTok's what, 15 to 30 seconds, somewhere in there? Video, right? You pretty much can't get longer than that. So think about what we're saying. So now the attention span or the content they're regularly watching is 15 or 30 seconds. That's a commercial.
Yeah.
Right? 5 years ago, it was 150 characters on Twitter.
Mm,
So what we're learning then and learning now is how to communicate information quickly, that's digestible, and able to be put into certain bite-sized pieces.
yeah.
I think TikTok is going to teach us how to share information in a much quicker, easier way.
And concise.
Concise. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so with TikTok, with Facebook, with Instagram, and all of these things, we spend more time online than we do with TV.
Yeah.
So think about it. Years ago, we would have fought to get on TV as ministries.
Man.
Where now you are a TV. Right?
Yeah.
So now you're figuring out how to draw an audience to yourself. And now because of this crisis, people around the world are all slowing down and having to look for answers.
Mhm.
And if you have a solution, they'll find you.
Yeah.
So the question
And
now
look
becomes,
for
how do you make yourself
answers.
relevant?
Yeah. Look for answers and look for escapes.
Escape.
You
Yeah.
know, like, hey, I'm going stir crazy up in this house. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know, I was watching this video earlier, and they was talking about the different days on the quarantine, right?
Right.
And on one of the days, had a guy with a little puppet sock hand or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's up in an apartment, and the cars are going by, and he's like eating the car. You know what I mean? Like, you know, one guy is playing tic-tac-toe with his cat. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, yeah, man, people are looking for things to do, like you said. So now, as you know, being a person that has studied and worked in mental health, that it only takes so many days to develop a habit.
Yeah.
You know, and so by the end of this quarantine, we've now developed some habits that, even though it's going to be lifted, there's some habits that's just going to stay in place.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think how we digest information, how we think about information is going to be one of those things. You know, they were saying that the small sound bites of the press conferences have been listened to and replayed more than who attended the actual long, hour-long briefings and all those things, because people just want the information that's pertinent to them.
Absolutely.
Like, they don't want, you know what I mean? They don't want all of the other stuff. Like I hear you, but I really just want to know, hey, when is stimulus check coming? You know what I mean? And the business guy is like, hey, how are we gonna do these SBA loans? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, they really just want to know really what's important to me. And I think that's going to be a habit that's going to be hard for some people to break.
I agree with you 100%. Here's what I think you said so profoundly, maybe wrapped up in different words. We've been talking about it the whole time. How do you reach the doctor at home who's been helping people on the front lines of COVID? And how do you reach the person who's been laid off because they're not an essential worker with the same sermon, with the same information, right? Because that's really what we're talking about. That's really what we're facing. You just said, hey, they want the information that relates to them. So you can't preach for an hour dry. You can't just open up the text and say, okay, verse 1, verse 2. So everyone will say, oh yeah, I preach in a very systematic way. Really, do you? Because that systematic way, expository preaching is not going to work online, right? So you got to throw expository out to some degree. Not completely, not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater, but you can't tell me a whole story, unpack a text, give me 3 points, 4 illustrations. That it's not going to happen right now, and you reach everybody. So how do you reach everybody with bite-sized chunks, right? And that was that, concise, to the point, intertwine it, give me an illustration that matters. And oh, by the way, now your rubber ducky story don't work, right? You can't give me some unauthentic, borrowed, stolen story. You got to give me something off the front lines, hot off the press, something that I can feel. That's going to keep my attention while you dribble some more facts in, right? I think that the way we communicate has to change in sermons, in family, and loved ones. Do you call now? I don't know about you. I realize my phone conversations are longer now.
Yeah.
Right. I'm talking to people much longer than I normally would on the phone.
Right.
I'm building relationships. I'm building connection. Right. I don't just want to give up on you. We don't have the interaction we once used to have. So we're slowing down and we're actually communicating. I'm hearing your heart now.
Yeah.
Well, how do you do that online?
Right. Right. Yeah, because that's the thing where and then is it going to be multiple platforms?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like right now we know that Sunday morning, and for some churches, Sunday morning got condensed down to, straight 45 minutes.
Right.
Period. Where traditional church, you be in there, man, you be like going home for dinner. You know what I mean? And in some cases, you should return back again, like, starting out early morning, you better get up early, eat your Cheerios, because you're going to be in church all day, But now we're down to 45 minutes for some places. And what was longer was the small groups.
Yeah.
Where it was more intimate, those were longer, and so forth like that. And so the Willow Creeks of the world, if changed the dynamics of how the church was viewed and all of those things and what people were looking for. Right. But I'm wondering now, what is going to change now? Will COVID-19, has it changed the dynamics of what church will be for now?
I think so. I don't think small groups and life groups will be the same either. Right? While we're going to want that interaction, I think it's going to change how they meet, when they meet, where they meet, what they are, what they include. I think it's going to become more relational building, and I think that our ministries are going to have to be more relational. Yeah. I think anything that's not relational probably is not going to have success. And I don't know if you heard a lot of this before all of this happened, but for the last 18 months or so, I've been hearing a lot about the world of the mega church would change and how the mega church would no longer be the fastest growing segment in church anymore. And I honestly believe this pandemic will cause that to happen, that people are going to want more relational things. I know we were writing out our connecting and vision for where we were going as a church. Charles, I wrote that we were going to be a serving church, right? So not an attractional church, not a, spirit-led church and all these other terms people use, but a serving church. So that we would take people who weren't even connected to our community and go out in the community and serve. And so we would share the gospel with people when we were done, but maybe we were at Tent City or maybe we were somewhere else actually serving. And by serving, we were able to connect with people and share the gospel, right? Yeah. Because I think that those are the types of things that you're going to begin to see happen, is that there's going to be a service or a serving or a common goal, a reach. You said it earlier, social cause. I think that's what you're going to see happen now versus just seeing people come together because we're reading this book. I think those days are done. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting, man, because, some people live in this world where the context of their churchdom was small already, right? And then you have some people who, man, for the most of their ministry career, has lived in this mega church format, reaching larger platforms, utilizing technology to reach the world. So, uh, the interesting thing is that this guy, this woman, that was here in this small context, uh, is
You're muted. Muted.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, you were muted.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened with that. I just all of a sudden got a message that said, "Hey, your speaker has changed." I'm like, what? But praise God for technology, right? So this guy that was in this small context who's always gleaned and looked at this the man and the woman that was in this larger context as this is the arrival point for us. Like this is what you aspires to, right? Um, Now have to find a new focal point.
Yeah.
You know, like you have to find a new focal point because what if that's not what you aspire to anymore? And I think one of the things that this is done for a lot of people, and I work with I've done some consulting work for larger churches and mega churches and different things of that nature as it relates to being multicultural, multicolored, or how to strategize to reach a community and different things of that nature. Um, but the biggest of my clientele, if you will, when it comes down to churches, has really been small churches with small budgets to say, how do you do this, right? How can I get this done with this amount of money? And we've been able to help them devise a plan and strategize to reach their community in a different way, and utilizing larger church partners as a way of getting their mission and vision out there without trying to be large themselves. I think the worst thing that has happened in church was what we've just come from, where we think that everybody want to be TD Jakes, or everybody want to be the next Keon, or the next Michael Todd or whoever else, right? Like versus just asking God, what's the best version of you, and
Right.
how you reach who you need to reach, and I'm not saying, to be satisfied where you don't seek to grow, but to be content, no matter if you're up or down, that you're still growing. Because I think contentment in where I am in ministry or in life doesn't mean I'm not growing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Inwardly, because you have to grow inwardly, and then you have to make some hard decisions and hard choices. Like there are some choices that have you here. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I remember we had a conversation early on, and you had mentioned, hey, you can't be mad at me because I got margin, and
Right.
margin to close my doors. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I think that when I'm hoping every leader, particularly pastors, really just take this time and God as to where God will have them in all of this, and what is God saying through all of this, right?
Right.
Because for some people, they probably should be merging and connecting with other people to
Right.
get things done. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, some people won't make it, and they're going to be forced to do that anyway. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So just talk a little bit about that as it relates to how have you gone from where your ministry once was in Michigan, right?
Yeah.
And then coming to Toledo, you know, doing some things here, but yet, figuring out all of those things and what's the best or what's the process that you have used in order to say, okay, God, this is where my best niche is right now. Because you said, hey, I wrote we should be a serving church, right? Now, that's where we moved our ministry to be more of a community based in that community,
Right.
serving people, doing those things and one, not because we couldn't grow the church, it's just this is where I really believe God has us at right now. Like,
Right.
this is it. Now I know some people will say that because they it just ain't working. So they have no choice, right?
Yeah.
But you have had significant ministry in Michigan.
Yeah.
You've had significant, success there. And so, what does it look like now? And how did you arrive to this point, even before COVID-19?
Yeah, and you're right. So for me, it happened before COVID-19, and I think that I've been thinking about it the last couple of days. Praying for Pastor Blaylock's family,
Mm-hmm.
but that his passing has caused me the last 48 hours more than ever to think about why I'm doing what I'm doing the way I'm doing it. Because my whole journey to Toledo started at New Beginnings, right?
Okay.
So, the process of their original transition it brought me here for the most
Yeah.
part. And so
I didn't know that part
yeah,
of your story.
yeah, right. Yeah. So one of the final candidates that they had, made it to the final vote, in fact. And then they had to restart the process when they decided that divorced people couldn't pastor. And so that's a whole nother story. But the thing is that how did my ministry change from before I got here, having success, getting here, and then moving forward with different plans and then growing? And so what I realized was I felt like God was doing something different, and we were doing a lot of community outreach. Charles, man, we have given out thousands of toys on Christmas morning. Every morning, except for this past Christmas, for the last, 8 or 9 Christmas, we have had Christmas worship. And after Christmas worship, we've given away brand new toys, brand new clothing with the tags, Nike, Adidas, Champion. We didn't give away jerseys and you name it, man. We've done it. And we evolved that from giving away toys to kids to giving away gifts to families. So that everyone who walked in the door, whether you was a dad, a mom, a grandmother, there were gifts in the building for you. And I'm not talking cheap stuff, but we worked and partnered with major corporations to get these things to be able to give away. To the point we went from there to having people drive in town to actually host dinner. Because I started out by saying, let's give our food baskets. And then it dawned on me when a homeless family came to church and said, actually they weren't homeless. They had a home but no electricity.
Yeah.
They said to me, we're using a electric skillet that we're plugging in next door. Here's my turning point. They were plugging in an electric skillet next door 2 hours a day to cook food. And I said, whoa, why are we giving away dinners to people in a basket if we're saying they're unfortunate and they may not even be able to cook it?
Right.
So then we went to cooking the dinner. So I gave you free food and home cooked dinner and gifts. We went from that to doing Mother's Day gifts. We went to that to doing Easter. We didn't just give away Easter baskets. We gave away bikes and all jackets and flip-flops and jerseys for Easter, right? So every year for the last 10 years, I watched my focus change. Then all of a sudden I started working in the court systems and we started going to court with people. And we started working in different programs. Listen, I'm doing mental health stuff. And it dawned on me, Pastor, that I was serving. And there's a whole lot of people in this city and in Detroit that call me pastor, who sold to my church, who watch me online, who connect in the community, who would tell you, Pastor Mike is my man, right? He's my pastor, but they weren't showing up in nobody's church. They weren't coming to see me on Sunday morning. I had a GED program full of people calling me pastor and would tell you in the grocery store I was their pastor.
Yeah.
They weren't coming on Sunday, but I saw them Monday or Wednesday or Thursday for different programming. And it dawned on me that my mission was to serve people.
Yeah.
So I could reach more people with the gospel if I decided to change an outward focus and just focus on serving all the different ways God give me.
Yeah.
And then bring those people under an umbrella and love on them.
Right.
And it didn't always have to be Sunday morning. Of course, we got Sunday morning. That's our catalyst to spreading the gospel to some degree, right? But now we use Sunday morning for discipleship.
Yeah.
Equipping and building. I don't use Sunday morning like most churches for evangelism. I think the serving is evangelism. I think the outreach efforts are evangelism. I think the getting out in the community. So what happened was I had to be honest and say, I'm not trying to be this pastor. I'm not trying to be like this church. I don't care if you ride by and you see 30 cars instead of 300 cars. That doesn't bother me, because while you eating popcorn on Saturday, I'm still touching 50 more people, 100 more people. And I'm very comfortable in that. Here's something else I had to get comfortable with. I had to be comfortable with adapting my preaching style. I had to be comfortable with my voice, is what I mean. I didn't have to sound like you either. So my church don't have to look like you. We don't have to operate like you. And I don't have to preach like you. Yeah. And when I became comfortable with being different, then I was okay changing the method of my church to what it needed to be and making it the kind of church that people wanted to be a part of, or ministry people want to be a part of. So now planting the well, right? We came up with a name that was going to be cutting edge, but one that would allude to where we were going. So the Well Church Toledo, right? In a tagline of "Come worship with us" and things of that nature. Even our website, worshipwithus.org, right, is all about bringing people into community with us, not glorifying who or what I am. And that's what it is for us, making Jesus Christ the light of the world and not my own name.
You know, you had mentioned that your son worked at the Harvest for some time. And,
yeah.
I had my little stint with World Harvest for a while.
Okay.
We were part of the ministerial alliance, and partly because one of the churches I was pastoring, or I was overseeing, I should say, the pastors would be my partner. So, and so I remember
I lost you. Can you hear me?
I don't know what it is.
There you go. You're muted.
Is it back on now?
Yep, you're back on.
Okay. Yeah. And I don't know, you know, in 2005, I remember when we had the race riots. You know, somehow I remember and so
again.
Okay. System, low system.
When you in your hand, it comes back.
Okay. Yeah. This is weird. Let me do this.
That'd be good.
I think what my system is doing is trying to close out something. Yeah. I got like, if you see my, you know, I got like 4 screens up right now, literally. So many different things going on. So yeah, I think it was just so much other programs running or something. Sorry about that, people. Technical difficulties. Good thing we can probably edit that piece out. I remember right before, and long story short, Smith Park, Rob Parsley came, Um, Great guy. Um, Matter of fact, every dime I spent on this outreach, I literally, he reimbursed us. Like, I mean, he just told me to send him the receipts. Like he was, and at that time, our church was like, it was weird just how all that came about. But I remember right before I introduced him, you know, he talked to me very about a lot of platform. I mean, and I would say the business behind it, you know. And so, um, and what took, because a young preacher, pastor, small church, big church guy next to him, you get a chance to ask some questions. You ask the question, you want to know how this happened, how did you do this, right? But I remember him saying that if he had an opportunity to be where we were, that's where he would be even that day, right? That is what the ministry, the backbone of how his ministry was birthed, was out of serving people, doing for people. Exactly where you are now, exactly what you're doing is uh, what he was saying that really made the harvest what it is today. And I could probably even go point to a lot of different other ministries around the world that will probably say the same thing, right? Like, serve people, love people, care about people. And I believe this is what us as church leaders, as ministry leaders, we have to really get back to what you're saying right there, man, and it really be about serving people.
Yeah,
And
I agree with you 100%.
yeah,
Service has got to be a part of that. We've got to get back to the picture. Obviously, everybody wants to be bigger than they are,
yeah,
right? And everyone's not going to be major. I think Dr. Vernon says it best, but everybody should be bigger than what they are, right?
right.
You always have that room for growth, but I think that service is where it's at. Now, here's what's different, because Rodney Jackson and I were talking recently, great friend, and he was talking about his move back into the city, his move into the inner city, and why he felt called to the inner city. And I'm like, yeah, that's not my call anymore. So to the question you asked me a moment ago, like, dude, that's not my call anymore. Have fun with that, right? My goal, we're building to go into the suburb. Not because the suburb's better than the city, but I'm now comfortable in my voice,
Got it.
right? So I realize that my audience is different. I realize that who I'm trying to reach is different, but the outreach and serving is the same. So maybe instead of doing the food bank now, like we used to do and all of that, you'll see me hosting more classes and seminars and still giving away things and partnering, but it's easier for me to then raise an offering and give it to you, right? To do certain things that I'm not called to do in this season, that I don't have to force it, because I believe when you do stuff that you're not called to, you don't keep doing it long. So you might do damage, right? And so,
That's true.
right. So stick to what you're called to do, and then help somebody else do what they're called to do, and that's not taking anything from me, right?
Yeah.
Because now we can partner together, because I can offer something you can't, you can offer something I can't, and we can bless both our communities.
Right.
But that's where it's at. It's partnership. And you said it best. Right now, I think that's what's happening, that churches are going to have to partner. Some churches are not going to make it through this at all. COVID is going to wipe them out. They're done.
Yeah.
They're not going to reopen. Let's just be honest, right? Some churches will reopen, but they're going to be lost for a while. But those of us that are smart enough to know now that we need to partner and we need to figure out ways to come together and create opportunity, I think we're the ones that are going to thrive and excel and explode. Here it is. Some churches are going to go down. Some churches are about to come up.
Yeah.
And the question is, are you ready to admit what you got to change?
That's good right there. Are you ready to admit what you have to change? And it's funny because I was on a call, a couple of days ago with some pastors, and and I just remember just some of the conversations, right? Like, it wasn't my meeting; I was just joining the meeting. But I just remember some of the conversations. And I was like, I don't think some people are ready to admit what they have to change.
Right.
You know, I think it's like, you know, we've survived this way for so long, like there is no other way.
Right.
And so, you know, and I think that that's key because, you know, as bad as this pandemic is, and as life threatening as the virus is, um, you know, we have to take this time to 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 see what God wants His people to get, and how does He want us to serve uh, His body. You know what I mean? Um, I remember talking to a guy some time ago about um, the difference between the bridegroom and the friend of the bridegroom, right? Like, the pastor is not the bridegroom. This is not our bride. The
Right.
church doesn't belong to us. We're part of that church,
Right.
right? And so we have to get to that place where if God says something, this is what I want, then this is what we have to do. Right?
Right.
I mean, Isaiah said it best, right? Don't remember the former things nor consider the things of old. He said, behold, I will do a new thing. Will you not know it? Right? Will you not know it? Means he's doing something new, and you cannot even know what he's doing new because you're refusing to admit what you need to change.
Yeah.
You're refusing to admit what you need to change. Like, I'm refusing to say, like, okay, um, you know, I need to do some Facebook Live stuff, you know what I'm saying? Or and maybe if it's not live, pre-recorded and uploaded.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You may not be that spot on live type person, you know what I mean? Or you know, you might need to invest into a YouTube channel or get Sling or whatever the case may be, you know, invest some dollars in a different way so that you can do things differently, right?
Yeah.
And admit what you need to change, and how you're going to reach people.
I agree with you 100%. And don't worry about finances. So I think that becomes one of our bigger issues of, if I make this change, will I lose people? Will I lose money? I was on a call recently with the.
Wait a minute, Pastor Mike. Wait a minute, Doc. You telling people they shouldn't be concerned about money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm literally
Yeah.
saying it. Don't be concerned about the finances.
Don't be concerned about the tithes and the offering.
Right.
Don't be concerned about that.
Don't be concerned about it, because I was saying, you know, I was on a call recently, like you, a different call with the staff from Ron Carpenter's church.
Mm-hmm.
And they said something so powerful. They talked about how they made a tweak in their presentation of what he looks like on stage, put a camera on him. And when he began to make a plea to the audience, overnight, their income doubled. Overnight, he doubled. And he said something after that has changed my thinking completely. He said, money follows ministry. Money follows ministry. It echoes something I heard somewhere else recently. And that is, why are we chasing and worrying about the money? Do the work. The ministry will always be provided for, because you said it's not ours. Yeah. Right? God's going to always provide it. But you have to position yourself to execute. And we're not executing in the way we need to. And therefore, that's why we're struggling. We have questions. Things aren't working. I think as long as we do what we're supposed to do, we'll see signs, and we'll have access to things that will be life-changing for us. Yeah. I think we just got to do the ministry, do the real work.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, in real ministry, let me just put it this way. The work is the ministry, and the ministry is the work. And what's real ministry to you is going to be different from somebody else. Like you're saying, Pastor Rodney Jackson, which is my brother. I love him.
Yeah.
Moving back to the inner city, we were we were sort of like in the inner city initially, but we were like what they call a bi-urban type of fairway with connects urban to suburban type,
Right.
where our position was. We made the decision to move into Central City, you know, like Pastor Rodney Jackson made the decision to move there, and for various and different reasons, you know what I mean, different reasons. Uh, but I know service on the corner of Bancroft and Franklin was different than the corner of Hill and Reynolds.
Yeah.
However, it's still people and people in need. They just need different things at different times and for different reasons.
Exactly.
And so we have to remember that during this time, uh, don't let's not bash each other for what's being done and doing it this way and doing it differently. But how do we come together? And like I was saying, for us, typically, I mean, I got a few angry phone calls because I think people were so used to us leading out, doing food and doing all those type of service type things. And when this hit and we didn't, and it wasn't that I didn't want to, I just didn't feel like people needed it because there's so many other places that was doing it. So what we did was I said, hey, I got a couple vans, right? This ministry can home delivery. And these people that we're serving and help them do, we call it, deliver them to the place they can to. So we're transporting them, right? Okay, I don't know what happened.
I hear you.
Okay, so we're transporting them to the locations. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, so for us, that was our ministry at that time because there's no need of setting up, doing another food drive when I got one right around the corner from me, right? And then my brother across town is doing one, and then this person is doing. So, but we can transport people, and then we can offer helping with home delivery. And I think that that collaboration and partnership, the same people still get fed. You know what I mean? Same people still get help. And so, like you were saying, hey, in this new context for us, we would rather send you volunteers and write a check to you versus trying to do it all ourselves. You know what I mean? But we can partner together in that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm just echoing and saying exactly because I agree with you 100%. And I think like you and Jackson, you're very clear on where God wants you to be and what God has you to do. And I celebrate that because you guys and other ministries have figured out this is where we're going to be best. Right. And even with you, I've watched the transition happen with you. So now, when I see Empower, I pretty much know this is probably going to be Charles, right? Coming across my screen. Right. So now I'm thinking housing, I'm thinking support, I'm thinking education, I'm thinking differently. Whereas 3 years ago, I've done it. I've called you, hey, I got somebody at my church and they need food, right? And it would have strictly been like, I know he got food over there. It may not be today, but he might be able to help us out, right? Yeah. Whereas now I'm thinking, hey, you need housing. No, you might need to call Charles. Right? Yeah. You might need to go over there. I'm not thinking food. Yeah, you might still have food, but I'm not thinking about that now. Right. The thought is you're on doing something different. And that's what I'm saying. Putting us in the positions now to where we're very comfortable in, hey, we're building something else.
Yeah.
Because we see a need, we see a growth. We did GED because we realized people weren't graduating.
Right.
Right? Where I'm at now or where we're trying to go, that's not going to be the big thing.
Yeah.
But we're still thinking education. And so now we're figuring out how we build in trades. I got guys right now, we're hoping NAB Hood still happens this summer. I got 13 guys wanting to go with me to NABHOOD in Miami, the National Association of Black Hoteliers, right? So I'm trying to figure out, how do I put them in hotel rooms? How do I get them transportation? And how do I get them dressed? Because they can't come with a do-rag, gym shoes, and baggy pants, right?
Right.
But they're now excited about learning about financing, not just because they want to buy a hotel, but because they talk about other finance options and they talk about how to do business. And so these are guys that want to do legit business, right? So we've partnered them with local places, and now we want to take and give them exposure to something else. Well, I never would have done that where I was. It's moving out of that circle and changing their mindset and making them hungry for something else, right? And grabbing other people who are on the verge of, man, I'm not middle class, I'm still kind of struggling, but that's where I want to be. I want to live over here. I want to eat over here. I want to do this, right? So I'm having meetings in Court Eatery. I never would have had a meeting in Court Eatery before because the guys I had wasn't eating there.
Right.
Now they're not complaining about paying $13 for a bottle of water and a bowl of food. Right? So I'm just saying, it's different, you know, when you start to expose people and realize what you're comfortable with, and your ministry is different. The group I meet with now meet at Starbucks. When we first started meeting, we was at American Table. Right? Now they rather go to Starbucks. Right? They you know, they would rather we had our own place, but they'd rather go to Starbucks. Why? Because they're not drinking lattes. They weren't drinking lattes, right? I remember the first meetings, Pastor, and I'm exposing them to what a latte even is. Right? Now they want it. They know the menu better than I do. And it's not that I'm saying we don't have people exposed to it, but the reality of it is we had a whole segment of people who didn't have that exposure. So sometimes you've got to take people out of what they're used to and show them something different. The same for pastors is the same for regular people. That's all I'm saying. And I think that that's just where our ministry is now. I'm excited about it. I got cats reading books they wouldn't read, right? So I got guys who barely reading thick and Just Mercy and Post World Everything. They wouldn't have read them books 3 months ago, 3 years ago.
And so what you're looking at is we can reach a population through educating them on a different level versus just saying, hey, come get a meal or come get a GED. You know, and all those things are good. They're needed, right? And I think that was the same thing for us is that, you know, we put our faith down housing and empowering families because we knew that the community was getting better, the family was getting better. You know what I mean? And so if the family didn't get better, then the community could get better. And so I think that, you know, we do that. I'm just, you know, in whatever, you know, and as you're listening to this, in whatever form of ministry you're coming out of and whatever you're transitioning into, just be careful not to dog where you were. You know what I mean? And I think that's what we see people do so much. Like they get a new revelation and now they're dogging where you were just there yourself, brother. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean that that's bad. It just means it's not for you. I always tell people, I never say God's not in a place, right? Particularly related to churches and ministries. I always just say it's not, that's not just where God wants me at. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean that God's not there working because, you know, are people being saved? Are people being set free? You know, what other tools are they using? You know, and so forth and so on. We're so quick to be so dogmatic to our brothers and sisters that we forget, like, hey, it's just not, it didn't work for you, right? Like I don't dog people who are on a different platform doing different things. Why? Because I don't think I have the temperament for half the stuff that some people do it on those levels. You know what I mean? Just like people that's starting out and planting churches. I've planted 7 ministries or helped other pastors plant 7 different ministries and restarted a few. And man, I don't think I had a temperament for that no more. You know what I mean? Like I just like can somebody that's established call me over there because I'm like I am not doing this no more. You know, but everything is different. Like, you know, young guys, man, they're starting churches now. like it used to be a big thing. You started a church and had, 20 people, 25 people show up, you were doing good. You know what I mean? To plant a church at that particular time years ago, right? Now, man, people are launching with 300 people, on their launch day, so
look, I get it.
Yeah.
We're looking at. We got a number goal, and everything progressed to that, and that's why we put our launch 15 months out, right?
Yeah.
Because we had a number goal, because we knew, hey, if you want to be larger than this, you have to launch with this, right? So we had all of that factored out in formula. This is the first time we've done it with a organization. I've done several in the past. It's also the first time that I felt momentum before we launched, right? And so it's different. But you're right. But I don't knock anybody that does it differently. I talked to a guy, he was like, man, we just opened up a building and we started preaching. I'm like, yeah, I'll never do that again.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the only way to do it. I said, that's the only way to do it for you. I understand.
Right.
Keep doing it. Have fun.
Yes.
I'm not knocking you for it.
God bless you.
I just can't do it.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So,
yeah, I can't.
Yeah, man. Appreciate what you're doing. Appreciate what you guys are, even this platform and how you're building it. I think it's a awesome avenue to minister to people, because I think right now we as pastors, we're looking for answers. And I think this is just one of the perfect ways to answer questions that guys won't be honest enough to say they have.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm looking for that day, man, we can have forums with real talk, particularly with leaders, whether you're entrepreneur just starting out, or seasoned business owner, or a pastor just starting your church, or a seasoned pastor that's been in the game for 20 years. I just feel that we have to come together and have a different discussion, and realize we're all in the same boat. And as you said earlier, we now all operate at the same level. We all have 10 people. That's all you can have in the building at the time. That's it. Yeah. So yeah, man. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation. Thank you for coming on. And we just tell people, man, keep tuning in, because we have a lot of more great discussions coming at you on the Glass Table, and just leaders pouring out their heart in a very transparent and vulnerable way, sharing some trade secrets if they, for those who can. And just gathering up. So, Dr. Michael Carter, why don't you tell people where to find you? We'll make sure we have that in comments, how to get a hold of you. And
I just lost you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I didn't hear the end of what you said.
Okay, I was just saying, just share people with how they can find you, and how can they connect to you.
Awesome. Yeah, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Most of those places is Dr. Carter, Dr. M.E. Carter. Facebook is my name, Michael Ellis Carter Jr. But best and most probably is www.worshipwithme.org. Worshipwithme.org, and the Well Church Toledo. That's probably the best places to catch me.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you, man, again for coming on, and I'd like to talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. Have a good one.
Yes, sir. God bless.
Thank you guys for joining the Glass Table today. It was such an honor to have Dr. Michael Carter on, sharing his views. And again, leave your comments in the comment section. Let us know what you think. Help us get better as well. Also, hit subscribe, share with somebody, encourage someone else to subscribe, and you will be entered into our monthly drawing for a cash prize. See you on the next episode of The Glass Table.